Hey guys, Sableye here, and welcome back to the channel. Over this past weekend, Victory Road, which is one of the main organizers in the Pokemon community online for sure, they've been doing really good stuff over the past few years, so definitely check them out. All their descriptions will be below. But yeah, Victory Road hosted a huge online tournament sponsored by GGToor, which had some decent prize money, free to enter, and actually ended up having 413 players. And the reason we're here today is because I managed to finish top 16 out of those 413 players. And I just wanted to go over my team, and you guys are going to look at it right now, and you're going to say it's nothing crazy. And of course, it is nothing crazy, but I do want to go over my run, talk about a few things, just kind of go through things like that. And I say we jump into things. So I'll see you guys on the team page. Okay, so you guys are going to see the team on the screen right now. And as I said in the intro here, guys, it was nothing crazy, right? The team isn't new. You guys have seen these 6 Pokemon everywhere, right? You've seen Joe UX9 use it to success. You've seen Pangy or Stefan Mott use it to success. There's so many people that have used this team, right? And like, it's one of the things that people come to just on their own, right? Like, I didn't build this with Pangy. I didn't build this with Joe. We all just kind of came to this end game, right? And it's one of the most consistent 6 Pokemon teams in the format. You know, it's just super consistent. There's so many positive matchups, and there's so many matchups that are just like, okay, I win. And in a format like this, where there's matchups where you can just say, yes, I'm going to win this, is amazing. And a lot of those matchups are anytime somebody tries to deviate from something standard, right? So anything that's not necessarily standard, like maybe even if they, okay, Zekrom would actually probably cause issues. But I was going to say, that was a bad example. But you know, but just some of the off-meta restricteds that people try to use, oftentimes can't hold up to it. But like I said, I don't want to spend too long talking about the team. I've got my agenda on the side here. I'm just trying to keep an eye on it, because otherwise I'm going to ramble on for like 60 hours. And you guys don't want to be here for 60 hours. But guys, Team Face will be in the link down below along with the rental code. So, yeah. No, so leading up to the tournament, you guys have seen me use this team on my Twitch if you follow me there. And like I said, nothing crazy. I figured it was time to release it. Obviously, some changes need to be made, but I'm not going to talk about those. But got some ideas in mind for upcoming regionals and such. But like I said, guys, this is your standard Zacian. My 244 speed, well, at one point I was running Swords Dance Zacian. And if you guys remember that, I had a video with it a couple weeks ago, I think. And I had the Swords Dance Zacian just so I didn't click Player Off. And I'm like, if I'm not clicking Player Off, and I'm not clicking Swords Dance, what can I put there instead? And I mean, Substitute just made the most sense there. It really did. And I just kept the speed from my faster Swords Dance Zacian, because when I was Swords Dancing, I wanted to be one of the faster Adamant Zacians, right? No one really goes Adamant max speed anyways. A lot of them stop at like 212 speed Adamant. I think is probably one of the fastest I've seen. So I figured, you know what, if I can creep that with a Swords Dance, obviously a bit irrelevant now, but here, even if I could get a sub up before I have to take a Behemoth Blade, it still made sense to me. I didn't need any really excess bulk. I think everything I needed to live, I kind of lived. And obviously the 76 attack I think is pretty standard. A lot of people are starting to calc for that, so maybe there's a reason to maybe bump that up a little bit. But you know, basic Zacian, guys. I'm not gonna sit here all day talking about Zacian. Anyways, Kyogre. Kyogre once again pretty standard Assault Vest Kyogre. 204 HP, 36 bulk is a very nice benchmark to hit. I don't remember for what exactly. I'm sure it was something to do with Rillaboom or Zacian Behemoth Blades or something along those lines, guys. I'm sure it was something with those. 76 attack, I wanted to make sure I was picking up most Zacians by Dynamax Max Geyser and Durain, because if I Dynamax my Kyogre and missed a knockout on the Zacian, it was going to be rough. Right now, granted, there were a few Zacians I did miss knockouts on over the course of using this team, but those are like the extreme bulky ones, and the extreme bulky ones I tend to not have too many issues with, right? Because once I know they're extremely bulky, I have Incineroar, I have Rillaboom, I can kind of outpace them with one Airstream as well, right? So it's not too big of a deal. But the faster ones, I needed to make sure I killed, right? Because this Kyogre only hits 134 speed, which will only outpace outpace the Adamant Zacians. It will not outpace the Jolly ones. So if they were Jolly, I wanted to make sure I was getting that knockout. Whereas the other way around, it was kind of okay if I missed a knockout, because I could get the +1 speed or slow them down with a Hyper Beam and end up being or a Max Ray, and end up being faster, right? So that was kind of the concept there, and that's why I ended up transitioning to Max Strike as well, because I did have Hailstorm, But I found there was a lot of times where I'd click Hailstorm or I'd click the Ice move, and it really gained me nothing, right? Without a Life Orb or without any sort of actual special attack investment, I wasn't picking up the knockouts onto Rillabooms. I wasn't picking up the knockouts on the mons I wanted to pick up on, right? I wasn't doing enough damage, right? So Max Strike actually gave me outplay potential, and it comes in handy quite a bit, like more than you guys would think. I don't think it played too big of a role in the tournament over the past weekend, but yeah, it was. I think it is better than Ice Beam on the AV Kyogres. It just gives you outplay potential, right? Because a lot of the times people go, okay, I can just stay ahead, just stay above in speed and be good, and you just slow them right back down. It's really, really nice. Zapdos, guys, the only thing crazy on this Zapdos is the fact that I'm Life Orb, Eerie Impulse. I don't think there's really anything else crazy. It's standard Life Orb Zapdos outside of that. The EV spread was to optimize some of the play rough stuff from Zacians. I don't remember exactly what I believe. I'll probably put a calc up for it. But guys, it was nothing crazy. Nothing crazy. It was just to have a better roll into play rough Zacians. I didn't need all the special attack anyways with the Life Orb. And that was basically that. Eerie Impulse. I have Eerie Impulse instead of Protect. Because 90% of the time when I'm bringing Zapdos, I'm either maxing it or I'm bringing it strictly for Eerie Impulse. So if I'm not gonna max it, I'm gonna have Eerie Impulse and hinder the Dialgas. This was the Dialga matchup, and people are gonna ask, how did you beat Dialga? This is how I beat Dialga, right? A lot of the time Zapdos can't do anything, right? Because like I wanted the Life Orb variant because the damage output from Life Orb Zapdos is insane, and I feel like it's almost needed, right? It just makes some lines so much easier. But I didn't want to sacrifice the Eerie Impulse for that Dialga matchup, right? Because if you hinder Dialga, it becomes so much easier for Zacian and Kyogre in the endgame to simply just stall out the max, and then Zacian, as we all know, can just Sacred Sword and bye-bye Dialga, right? So, but the problem with Dialga is sometimes it's too fast for you to get to that endgame. But with Eerie Impulse, I'm very safe, right? I can go Eerie Impulse sub turn 1 if I wanted to. If they prioritize Zapdos, I have Zacian behind the sub. If they don't prioritize Zapdos, they hit the sub and take an Eerie Impulse, I'm sitting pretty, right? That's basically my entire Dialga matchup. Zapdos is also really good versus Rinya Sun. For the most part with this team, it just helps me with the speed control and such. We'll get into that when I get into the tournament run a little bit later. But yeah, that's the Zapdos, guys. I liked having both. I didn't miss Protect at all. I did miss Roost a little bit, because I originally was Safety Goggles on this team way back when, but Heat Wave is too important, guys. Just having the potential to go Airstream into Zacian and next turn just all of a sudden be faster Max Flare and just drop them is too important. Even Heat Waves is really good versus like Groudons, and just if you need spread damage, it's really, really good to have. But jumping into the Grimmsnarl now, guys, this is nothing crazy. The spread is an old spread from a friend of mine, Wama or Jmodri, if you guys don't recognize the handle. Link will be down below, but definitely a really, really good player. And way back when we were originally building this core, they were like, you know, what if we could live Solgaleo stuff? And that's basically what this defense is for. This is going to live Solgaleo behind her. If you're behind a Reflect, you're going to live the Solgaleo attack unless they're boosted, which really, really works on this team immensely because Solgaleo and Dialga are the two toughest matchups for this team. This allows me to lead Grimmsnarl and basically say, hey, if I can get a Reflect up and you're not going to boost, let's say, because I maybe lead a Fake Out, or depending on what you're boosting with, right? Maybe you're scared to boost because my Zacian's going to KO you. Maybe you don't want to boost because of the Thunder Wave. It's basically just an extra way through it, right? I can click Reflect, I can survive, and then the next turn I can get a Thunder Wave off. All of a sudden, 2 turns of max, gone, right? It's just a nice fallback to have in a matchup that was difficult, right? The other, like, I think a more careful, especially defensive-oriented one is fair. Completely fair. I just think it's, on this team, it felt nice to be able to live stuff, especially with foul play, right? Wall the physical attackers and then hit them back with hard with foul play was the main concept there. Obviously, the rest of the set, Reflect, Light Screen, Thunder Wave, guys. That's just standard on Grimmsnarl at this point. Nothing crazy there. Speed was nothing crazy. I didn't need to be the whole I can be faster than a -1 Kyogre stuffs because I don't have Spirit Break, so it really didn't matter all that much, you know. Or a paralyzed Kyogre. I don't necessarily need to outpace them, you know. Nothing that, like, that's one of those things where like I sacrificed that for the defense, which I think was perfectly fine. I also don't know why I have 12 attack. Don't ask me. Don't ask me why I have 12 attack and foul play. I don't need 12 attack there. I probably could have dumped it. I probably could have dumped all of that either into speed or special defense. But But then I'm missing 4 EVs, and I probably would have just dumped them into attack anyways for purposes. But I don't know. I don't know. Ignore that. Ignore the 12 attack. You don't really need it. That's just left over from an old spread. But Rillaboom here. Obviously, Miracle Seed. For what you guys can't see, it is 60 special defense and 36 speed. We'll get into the speed in a minute because I'm still angry. But no, this set's just pretty optimized. It's basically it lives +1 Calyrex Shadow with when they're Focus Sash, Astral Barrage pretty consistently. It lives Zacian Behemoth Blades consistently. It's just an all around really nice spread. The 156 attack picks up a lot of knockouts. Right? Nothing crazy. It's your standard Rillaboom. Right? I opted to go high horsepower over Woodhammer just because it felt better. You know, it just felt better in testing. Like, it gave me an Alecki matchup because I could lead Rillaboom, max Quake if I really wanted to, and get some big damage up, get some boosts. Like, I could go, like, Rillaboom Zacian, let's just say, protect Zacian max Quake, or I could even max Strike to allow Zacian to be faster, right? It gave me options versus Alecki. Excuse me, which is what I really wanted with this slot, right? Rillaboom not only needed to deal with Kyogre, but I also needed it to deal with Alecki, because Alecki is always going to be a Pokemon that gives Zacian and Kyogre teams trouble. And there's no secret there, right? Alecki is always going to be a difficult matchup for this team. Yeah, you can patch it. And hey, I'd probably say it's probably close to 50-50 for me, right? Which is probably the best you're going to get on a Zacian and Kyogre team unless you're patching it with 4 ground types, right? But I mean, I'm not going to patch it with 4 ground types. So like I said, high horsepower tech was nice. So before the tournament, I adjusted the team, right? And I said to myself, okay, we're gonna switch the speed stat and the special defense stat. Because if I can go 60 speed, I'll hit, I believe it's 113, which when Calyrex Shadow is at -2, or paralyzed in this case, it's going to be slower than me. And this was my only matchup, or not my only, but one of my main matchups into the Calyrex Shadow Rider and Zacian team, which ended up being the team that ended up winning the tournament, and my opponent, who I lost to in top 16, but I'll get into that later. And it would have been amazing to have that 60 speed in my top 16 match, but not saying it would have changed anything, but like I said, we'll get into that when we get there. But definitely with a spread like this, if you're going to make a change, make that change. I think that's one that you really want to be, it's one you really want to focus on, right? It definitely would have paid dividends for me in the tournament. And here we go. You guys have been probably dying, waiting for me to talk about this Incineroar. I'm sure you have, but this Incineroar is the only reason I made Top Cut at this tournament. This Incineroar is the only reason I made Top Cut. 100%. And I mean it. It is the only reason I made Top Cut. Now, it is the Friday before the tournament. And it is, I think, Friday 1 p.m.-ish or something. I don't remember the exact time. And my friend Gabe, or Mr. Game & Watch, comes up to me and goes, okay, Ryan, I think I figured out a way for your team to beat Thundurus Stuffs. Because Thundurus is also one of those really annoying matchups for me, right? Especially like the Thundurus Shadow Rider Stuffs. And he goes, okay, Choppleberry Instant with Burning Jealousy. And I'm like, that can't possibly be good. And I'm thinking to myself, do I try it? And I'm like, okay, I'll test it. So I tested it for like 2 games. And I went back to him and I'm like, no. This team is, this doesn't work, Gabe. Can I at least beat Shukaberry? And he's like, no, trust me, beat Choppleberry, you need it. So I ended up playing like 2 or 3 more games. And I'm like, sure, I don't have anything better. I think it's somewhat of a tech. And guys, it worked out immensely. It worked out in so many scenarios that wasn't even the Thundurus scenario. You know? It was just so nice to have this Choppleberry, because a lot of the times the Zacian wants to come on the field after the Instin's on the field, right? And in an end game, right, a lot of the times it's, okay, Zacian picks off the Instant and can deal with whatever's left after, right? But it came into play, I believe it was my round 4, that the end game I just had Instant sitting there, and they couldn't hurt me, because they Sacred Sworded and I lived, and I was able to Flare Blitz them back. I did not miss the Dark move. I will let you know right now, not having a Dark move, which was Darkest Lariat for me before, I did not miss it whatsoever. Not once. Burning Jealousy was so clutch. So the concept here is you lead Grimmsnarl Instant into Thundurus Calyrex Shadow. And basically you click Reflect, or into Thundurus Zacian, whichever one they decide to lead, both of which are good leads into my team. You lead Grimmsnarl Instant, and your opponent's like, huh, they gave me the boost. and you click Burning Jealousy, they probably click either Airstream Sacred Sword or something along those lines. And you get the double burn on both of them. So not only are you chipping off a Calyrex Shadow's Focus Sash if they led that, or you're burning a Zacian, you're also burning their Dynamax Thundurus. And if you can burn Dynamax Thundurus, you have Kyogre into back to sweep. And if you get the Zacian burn as well, Kyogre's even better, even more so into back to sweep. Now, granted, on the teams that have the Gastrodon, you tend to not bring to Kyogre, or I tend to not bring to Kyogre, because Zapdos is my late game sweeper in those matchups. But, I mean, at the same time, Kyogre is very reliable if you can actually guarantee yourself a burn on those things. And having Burning Jealousy in those scenarios, and exactly what this is for, really, really, really comes in handy, you know? It's just one of those things that's just nice to have, right? We will talk about my tournament run real quick. I'm not sure if I'm going to have screens or if you guys are going to look at the rental code on the team, but on the screen. Either way, I'm going to talk about the teams right now. Or my tournament run, I guess, is the better way to put that. So round 1, I play R. And I know in-game name R is a really, really strong Japanese player. But what I found out later on, and I had suspicions, right? And what I found out later on is R is actually Rinya. And for those of you who recognize the name Rinya, Rinya is the creator of the Rinya Sun teams. And that team has won, I think, three of the 4 regionals, and maybe more than that now. They got second at this tournament. It is a destructive team. It is absolutely incredible, right? And I'm like, okay, we'll see what happens here, right? And it was just a really good best of 3. Lots of reads involved. Nothing incredibly crazy, right? Nothing scary there, right? Like just one of those games where, yeah, I kind of knew the matchup, but it ended up with an L on my end. I think I took game 2, and then they won game 1 and 3. I don't know. Either way, I lost that set. Really close game 3. Came down to Origin Pulse plus Grassy Glide from a -1 Rillaboom not being able to pick up a Groudon in Sun. So, I mean, it couldn't have come to a closer ending. And, yeah, that was basically that game 1. And I found out later on it was Rinya. So I lost to Rinya Sun from the actual creator. So I felt like I was playing well. And a lot of the times in the tours, it's all about mentality, especially in a 9-round tour with 413 people. It's going to be a long day. So you want to have a mentality that's going to be positive throughout the whole day. So what you want to find is things you did well even though you lost. And I felt like I positioned well, and I just lost out on a few reads. So I used that and said, you know what? As long as I can clean up a few of my reads, I'm going to be able to do well. Spoilers, I did end up going 8-1 in Swiss. So I lost round 1 and ended up winning the next 8 rounds, which is absolutely crazy and unheard of, especially from my end. So I'm happy. I guess my mentality thing kind of worked. But round 2, we played a really cool Lunadon team. I did get a little bit lucky in game 1. I did get a full pair of turn 1 that probably stopped me from going to sleep. But they also crit me there. And then game 2 was just, I think Krickern went up like 3-4 times. And I just managed to pivot it out. I felt in control. Yeah, I got lucky in game 1. But I think I could have lost game 1. And I just felt in control of the rest of that match. You know, it was just one of those matchups where, despite it being Lunadon, it was one of those things where I just felt comfortable. And I don't remember if a Chople Berry paid off there, because there was a Thundurus on it. Don't remember if I got the Burning Jealousy tech off at any point. I think I might have actually done it in game 1. I can't remember fully, but no, it was a really good set though. Anyways, win that game 2-0. Then round 3, and for those of you who don't know, Toronto Regionals 2018, a little bit of a throwback here. Story time with Ryan. I'm 1-1. Who do I pull? I pull Yuri. One of the best players in the game at the time, and still one of the best players in the game. Just taking a little bit of a break, I think. But anyways, yeah. So I pull Yuri in Toronto 18, and anyways, long story short, what I'm saying is I have a tendency at 1-1 to pull amazing players. So naturally, I'm 1-1, and I'm gonna pull an amazing player, right? I pull Marco Fierro. And first of all, if you don't know Marco's content, check him out. Links will be in the description down below. But anyways, other than that, I pull Marco. And Marco is a phenomenal player, guys. Probably one of the best in the game to date, as of right now, in my opinion. They are very solid. They did amazing in the first international challenge. They're cutting tournaments constantly, right? So this is a huge matchup, right? And I see the game. Well, lo and behold, Rinya Sun. So that's the Groudon stuff. So you guys will see it on the screen, because I'm sure I'm going to flash pictures of stuff at some point. But we're sitting there. And I'm sitting there going, okay, well, I pulled Marco. This is going to be a crazy matchup. And the thing is, I don't think other players play Rinya's son the same way Rinya plays Rinya's son. So Rinya played Rinya's son. Obviously, I think they adapted. They knew the matchup a little better. And they didn't bring Charizard. Right? And I think that is the correct play because you actually don't need Zard in this matchup. Marco, however, decided to bring Charizard, which I don't think is a bad play, but I don't think it's great for my team. So I go with my standard Zapdos, Zacian stuffs with Kyogre and Rillaboom in the back. That's my game 1 game plan. And in game 2, I tend to switch over to drop Rillaboom and bring Incin. Tends to be the way that game plan works out, right? So game 1, I'm like, okay, he can't just max this Charizard, because you want to max Charizard. If you're bringing Charizard and you're switching it out, you're losing momentum if I max my Zapdos. They lead Gastrodon on Charizard, right? You lose momentum if I'm maxing Zapdos here immediately if you're playing passive, right? So they know I want Kyogre on the field, right? But I can't bring Kyogre on the field. Because if I bring Kyogre on the field and they switch Gastrodon out into Groudon, which is the correct play on their end, I end up losing my weather. Charizard drops my Zapdos. Even if I would have had to win a speed tie and go for a max lightning. I don't like that play. I think the Airstream play from Zapdos and a Behemoth Blade from Zacian is the best play possible in that spot. And I went straight into the Charizard. Because I know game 1, that Charizard can't play passive and they have to cover a Kyogre switch in. So lo and behold, Gastrodon switches out, Groudon comes in. I get a big Behemoth Blade off for 75% into Charizard. And they win the speed tie, of course, between Zapdos and Charizard. That is the one flaw that I don't love about that game plan that I have going into that, is the speed tie between Zapdos and Charizard. It is terrifying to play, but I think it's one of those ones you have to play. Because had I just won that speed tie, we were gaming. Right? Had I win that speed tie, Charizard goes down, we're game. We lose the speed tie, Zapdos goes down. Right? So I now bring in, I believe I brought in Kyogre. And now they have Groudon Charizard without a speed boost because they Wildfire, besides in the rain beside Kyogre and Zacian. So I'm like, okay, they want Slug in here. That's how Slug comes in. Rillaboom comes in for the Slug. I managed to win that game. Just some really well-positioned game. Game 2, I decided to say, okay, they know I went after Charizard. Let's go after the Slug this time. Because I think what they're going to want to do is make an adaptation where they're going to yawn my max, knowing I'm going to max turn 1. They did stay in and kill my Zacian, but I killed the Slug in exchange for that. And once I had Zapdos on the field in the rain, the next turn, without the Slug being in the back, it was fairly easy to position for me. It was a really good game. The 2-0 that I won with I don't think accurately depicts what the game was. It was a lot closer, I think, than the score was. Really good game, really well played by Marco, I think. But we did take the win there, which was really, really nice. My round 4, I don't remember much. I'm going to be honest. I could go back and check the VOD. By the way, if you guys are curious, both Top Cut VOD and the Swiss VOD are up on my Twitch, if you guys are curious. But yeah, I don't remember much about it. I do remember Choppleberry being the reason I won that set. I believe it was game 2, and I ended up living as Zacian Sacred Sword and Flare Blitzing it off to win the game. And that's all I really remember from that set. To be honest, it was just one of those wins in the back pocket again, and it just felt good to win, right? So now it's round 5, and I pull Solgaleo Yveltal. Now Solgaleo Yveltal is one of the easier Solgaleo matchups for this team. And Solgaleo Yveltal it's just nice because I can play it passively and play game 1 strictly to scout. Because once I know items, I'm able to maneuver my way around things. And game 1 was one of those ones where, okay, I took huge damage from a max lightning into my Kyogre turn 1. And generally what you want to do here is you want to preserve Kyogre for the end game, because end game Kyogre is what's going to be killing things, right? And the information I got from game 1 was Assault Vest Solgaleo, and that was really the only information I needed, knowing that I didn't have to worry about a weakness policy proc moving forward, and I could potentially just leave Zacian in front of it. Because once I know it's not Life Orb, once I know it's not weakness policy, I can leave Zacian there, because it's not going to one-shot my Zacian with a Max Quake, which is one of the main things why I like Zacian in that matchup still. Because you could opt to not bring it, especially because I don't have Play Rough, but Zacian's too good to bring. So, too good to not bring, sorry. So I bring Zacian, game 2. Anyways, I end up maneuvering my way out of that. Unfortunately, I did hear that my opponent, they came into a chat after and were saying they timed out in one of the turns, which is a little unfortunate. But it would have been, I think, I don't know. Now, does losing that match change anything about the run? Who knows? I get completely different opponents. Could potentially change anything. So, unfortunate timeout for my opponent. I think I played well. They did mix it up game 3 going with an Yveltal mode, which is surprising. I feel like the Yveltal mode doesn't do as much as the Solgaleo mode. Like, I have to pivot so well against Solgaleo to win that. But I don't know. I feel they went with the Yveltal mode, and I kind of just feasted on that with Zacian. So it worked out for me. Okay, moving forward, round 6, I play Fede Campo. I am going to speed up, guys, just because I don't want you guys being here for a year and a half. But round 6, played Fede Campo. Really, really good Italian player. And once again, I knew they they tend to build with Marco, right? Kind of in that friend group sort of thing, right? What do I see? Rinya's son. And almost plays out the exact same way as the Marco game played out, right? Turns 1s were interesting. There's a few different variations that went out. I actually... I think I lost game 1. No, sorry. I won game 1. I lost game 2 because I changed my game plan, figuring they'd adapt. They didn't adapt, and they ended up taking me down. They won game 2, and in game 3, I decided to make. You know what? They've played the speed tie twice, so I figured they'd play the Zapdos speed tie a 3rd time, and I simply clicked Max Guard and Behemoth bladed into the Charizard. And if I'm correct, they went Max Wildfire into the guard and a Yawn into the guard. And then on that turn, it was... Sorry, they swapped in Charizard. That's what they did. They swapped in Groudon for the boost to Charizard. I got a Behemoth Blade into that, and they went Max Wildfire into the guard. And once at that point, it was simple because Zacian killed one thing, and Zapdos would hit the Groudon very hard the other way, and I no longer needed Kyogre. Right? And I no longer really needed Zacian after Charizard went down, right? And I think I actually ended up doubling the Groudon that turn, too. Just because, like, it was guaranteed. Like, Charizard wasn't scaring me. So I don't exactly remember, but it was a W. And it was just another really close set versus Rinya's son. Like, I like the Rinya's son matchup here with this team. It's still not, like, it's not like, oh, I got Rinya's son. It's a guaranteed W. But it's one of those matchups I just felt comfortable with going up against, right? Rinya's son, to me, is one of those ones where if you kind of know how they want to play it, you can kind of counteract that with your plays, right? Which I think is a lot better than flowcharting the matchup on your end. You want to flowchart the matchup on their end. And then say, okay, well, this is what they would want to do here, and you can actually take that to your advantage. At least that's the way I find approaching that matchup tends to work in this format. Seems to work for me. Now, round 6, we're going to pull up Snorlax Smash. Not a name I've heard before, but we do pull one of our toughest matchups with Calyrex, Shadow Rider, Zacian, Thundurus. And I don't remember all that much, but I do remember Burning Jealousy, Incin, Chople Berry. I actually managed to get that off in one of the 2 games. Don't remember which one it was. Anyways, very good game. Very good set. Felt good to win, and now we're sitting at 6-1. No, 5-1. 5-1? 6-1. We're sitting at 6-1 after round 7, and we have 2 matches left. So 6-1 from 0-1 to 6-1 feels really, really good. So it's just one of those things now. Who we get next? Because everybody sitting at 6-1 probably deserves to be at 6-1. You know, it's not one of those. It's not like There's no more easy matchups. Not that there really were any in this tournament to begin with, but you know, it's one of those things like whoever you're gonna get is gonna be scary. So I pull Yuri. Speaking of Yuri that I mentioned earlier, I pull Yuri, and Yuri decides to come in with I believe the team they brought to one of the previous regionals, which was the Whimsicott, Kyogre, Zacian, Entei stuffs, which I recognized almost immediately. It was actually a team I lost to in one of the draft leagues I'm in, so it was kind of funny to see it. So I kind of knew about the team a little bit. And it was just a matter of positioning there. And it was probably one of the best sets of Pokemon of the day. I think between the Marco set and the Yuri set were probably 2 of my favorite sets from that day. And it's just why I love Pokemon. Games like those. Like, had I come out on the losing end of that set, the Marco set, the Fede Campo set, the Yuri set, you come out on the losing end, even the Rinya set, right? I came out on the losing end, but it was just a really good set of Pokemon, you know? I did manage to beat Yuri. I did get my Dynamax Rillaboom. The game plan kind of worked out perfectly, right? I bring Grimmsnarl game 1 because they're going to probably go with the Tailwind mode, right? So they went with the Tailwind mode. I brought Grimmsnarl game 1. Unfortunately, I didn't make it through that game 1. I did take the L. Game 2, I'm like, so their best answer to my Grimmsnarl mode would probably be Indeedee. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to bench Grimmsnarl here. Let them bring Indeedee. So they bring Indeedee. It's perfect for me. And I managed to get through that. I don't remember exactly how it went down, but I do remember that I beat the Indeedee mode. So game 3, I'm like, okay, they're going to switch back to Whimsicott Kyogre now. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Rillaboom Zacian and get aggressive and put immense amount of pressure on that Kyogre turn 1. Now, they maxed Kyogre turn 1 and take my Zacian out, which was a really, really good play. Like, just Tailwind Geyser. I do get 60% to the Kyogre, though, which is all I really needed from the Rillaboom at that point. And we were... it was one of those things where I had to max my monkey at the right time. So I ended up maxing Rillaboom, got big damage into killing a Zacian. I then clicked Max Strike to kill off a Whimsicott. And from there, we were able to slow their... I don't know. Did I strike the Whimsicott or did I quake? I don't know if I actually quaked the Zacian. Either way, I maxed the monkey, clicked Max Strike, slowed something down outside of Tailwind, and I managed to win the endgame there. But it was a really, really, really good set. Round 9, I end up pulling Neil. Neil's a friend of mine, fellow Canadian, and they were also 7-1. They started 7-0, lost the last round, and come in to play me. And I'm not even going to talk about this set, guys. It was just Zacian Kyogre stuffs. But the only reason I'm not going to talk about this set, because it was not a game of Pokemon. It was a game of how badly can I hack this man out. And I honestly got to a point where I felt bad. If I needed the para, I got the para. You know, and it was just a 2-0, but it really should have been a 2-0 in the other direction. You know, I didn't have much of a matchup, but the only good thing about it was the fact that this hacks didn't cost Neil top cut, right? Neil still managed to make top cut because it was an X2 top cut, so obviously very, very, it was lucky on my end, but we'll take the 8-1 after Swiss. Super nice. Now I'm gassed. I go to bed. you know, you gassed. I didn't actually go to bed, but I relaxed for a bit. Didn't even bother prepping for top cut all that much. I tried to find my opponent's team, couldn't find it. Anyways, 34 people make cut. Show up tomorrow. I look at the brackets up. I am playing a Japanese opponent. And so I go to my friend Turtle Mania, who is a little bit better versed in the Japanese Pokemon community. And I say, Turtle, you have any info on my opponent? And Turtle manages to actually find a team that they've been running in the past with Xerneas, Xerneas, Groudon, Bronzong, Incin. But it was like weakness policy, Incin, but Berry, Xerneas. It was insane. Anyways, so I go into the set. Lo and behold, it's that team. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, did they change anything? It was support Thundy. And I lead game 1, and I lead game 1 with, I believe, Zapdos Zacian, because I didn't think they really had much for it. And I did take the Falter game 1. And I fall game 1, and I'm like, hold up a second. In what world am I not leading Rillaboom Zapdos into this? There is nothing they can do. Because as long as I'm faking out the Prankster, they can't do anything. Right? So leading Rillaboom Zapdos forces them to max a Prankster Thundurus twice. And when they max a Prankster Thundurus, there's no Airstream. All they have is Max Lightning. So all I have to do is focus down that Thundurus, because it's the only thing stopping me from sweeping with Zacian Kyogre in the endgame. Did get very close in the endgame. They actually ended up getting Trick Room up, getting into a spot where they ended up self-body pressing their Incineroar for the weakness policy proc, and went for a Darkest Lariat into my Kyogre, which my Kyogre ended up managing to survive. Otherwise, that would have been a very different endgame, but it was very, very close. Really, really fun set. Really happy I came out on the winning end. So now on top 16. Top 16. We end up playing the winner of the entire tournament, so congrats to them for winning the whole thing. But more importantly, this is where things get interesting. And Calyrex Shadow Rider, Zacian, for those of you who didn't remember the team. But unfortunately, I do take the 2 straight L's. I don't think I played game 2 very well. Game 1, I realized, hey, I have the wrong Rillaboom spread. And I realized in the most unfortunate way. So I know on that team it's generally physical Regieleki, so that you can darkness into Astral Barrage and just start shredding things, right? Didn't exactly know the item. A lot of the times it is AV though, right? So I kind of knew, like I had a hunch on what was going on, right? So I lead my lead into that, because they had the Blastoise as well. So my lead into that is Rillaboom Grimmsnarl. Gives me the most options to make plays and get out of things, right? Because there was no Thundurus, I can safely lead Rillaboom, and this is exactly why I have high horsepower. So they lead exactly what I expected. Alecki, Calyrex Shadow Rider, I go Grimmsnarl, Rillaboom. And I'm under the impression that I had made my Rillaboom faster. So the safe play for me is, because I'm such a physically bulky Grimmsnarl, I can take the Alecki attack plus an Astral Barrage, assuming I get the Max Quake up. So what I do turn 1 is I paralyze the Calyrex. And I paralyze the Calyrex and I go for Max Quake. Now they go Max Lightning, but unfortunately, I have the wrong Rillaboom. And Calyrex decides to go Astral Barrage, and I die with Grimmsnarl. Whereas if I had the correct Rillaboom, I get the Quake up first before they go for the Astral Barrage. Grimmsnarl survives that turn, and we're able to get a screen up. Right? And just kind of force their hand a little bit more. And maybe see some things, right? And see more of what they brought and more of their gameplay. Now, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong here, guys. I'm not saying if I have the correct Rillaboom, I win this set. I'm not saying if I have the correct Rillaboom, I win this set. But I am saying I think the entire set plays out entirely differently. Now, I choked game 2 because I was still tilted from game 1. I played game 2 very poorly. But full credit to my opponent. They played that very well. Played the set very well. They played to their outs. They deserved that W more than I did. And the rightful winner got that game. So, unfortunately, I do falter in top 16. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll put the rental code on the screen now for you guys if I haven't done it already. You guys can see the rental code. We're going to quickly go over some matchups. In the mirror match, I like to lean on Kyogre, especially if they're like the Tailwind versions. I like to lean on Kyogre a lot because what I can do is they tend to not bring their Ogre, and my Kyogre, as long as I'm positioning it properly, like Grim Ogre or even Grim Zap is pretty good, tends to be what I like to do there. Just feels right. You know, it's just one of those things where I can kind of outbulk their max. And a lot of the times with this team in general, it's not so much about what you're Dynamaxing. It's about not losing to the opposing Dynamax. Right? So as long as you max with their Dynamax or can somewhat stall it out, you are more than okay to win endgames with this team. Right? As long as you don't get immediately steamrolled, which is why Thunder's Zacian stuffs and Thunder's Calyrex Shadow stuffs is hard for this team. Right? Because it's a more of a passive team. Right? Like I'm not out here trying to destroy people. Right? I'm out here trying to preserve my pieces and win in the end game. Right? And that's why those hyper offensive teams like that Thunder's stuffs is just too much. It's just too much. It's too much to handle. Right, so I have to make some changes for that. But I do think Kyogre Zacian, this team is phenomenal. But yeah, so like I said, Kyogre Zacian stuffs, that's what you kind of want to do. The Calyrex Ice Palkia, which I actually didn't play, thankfully, because it's a little bit read heavy, right? But generally in those, I like to go Grim, Kyogre, Instant, Zacian, and just pivot that around. You can argue leading Zacian is good because you have Substitute. So you can get the Substitute up, get Trick Room up, and be behind screens. They'll get Trick Room up, but you can be behind screens and kind of chill, which is more than okay. But that matchup is more so read-based and kind of just positioning your way around the Trick Room and not losing too many pieces. What else is common? You've got Rinnia Sun. I talked about it a little bit with Marco. There's a few ways to play this. You can 100% bring Instant. I like bringing Instant game 2 rather than game 1. I also really like Zacian. You can bench Zacian. Benching Zacian is not wrong here. You can easily get away with like Zapdos Rilla, Instant Kyogre, or Zapdos Grim, Instant Kyogre. You can easily get away with those 4 instead. 100% of the time. You don't need Zacian. But I like Zacian because it punishes and allows me to punish their mistakes. And the thing with Rinnia Sun is a lot of the times there's so many options that they have to make a call as well. Right? And Zacian can punish them if they make the wrong call. Whereas the other way around, you're really only left with one big piece. And you kind of then your calls become a little bit more reliant, right? Whereas if I lead Zapdos Zacian with Kyogre in the back, they have to make a call. You've got to kill Zacian or you got to kill Zapdos. Or am I going to switch in Kyogre, right? It forces their hand a little more in my opinion. But that's my game plan there. And then game 1 you bring Rillaboom so you can deal with the Gastro in the end game. And then game 2 you drop Rillaboom because they say, oh, they've got Rillaboom, so I can be a little bit more aggressive with my Gastrodon. You prioritize Gastrodon immediately, and if they don't have Gastrodon, well, then you don't need Rillaboom, right? So, generally speaking, that's the way I like to go with that, but there are variations of how you can play against it, right? And, I don't know, it just seems to work for me when I bring the Zacian Zapdos lead. What else is there? Dialga, like I said, you want to be leading Zapdos, and you want to be careful of Fake Out. So what you want to do there is you want to go Zacian Zapdos, because you're guaranteed to get through the turn with both. Or you're not. If you don't get through the turn with both, you're getting through the turn with a Substitute up. So basically you go Zapdos Zacian, they're going to probably go Grimmsnarl Dialga, if that's the mode they have, right? You go Eerie Impulse and Substitute. What they're going to end up going for is they're going to probably do something like Fake Out into one of you and try to get damage off. So they'll Fake Out, say they Fake Out Zacian, well you don't get Sub, but you get the Eerie Impulse off and then Dialga doesn't kill. Now, or they Fake Out Zapdos, they kill Zapdos, but you're behind a Sub. Right? And then once you're behind a Sub with Zacian, Kyogre can come in, you don't need Zapdos anymore, and you can just kind of win the game that way. Because Kyogre doesn't die. right? Kyogre doesn't die, all of a sudden you know they have to start hitting this Zacian because it's behind a sub, right? They can't just completely ignore it. And it's just one of those ones that's just really, really nice. I did miss having Hailstorm on Kyogre for that. Obviously, I didn't play it, so hey, it's okay. Because Hailstorm's nice in that spot because you know the Grimmsnarl is generally focus sash on those teams. So, like, you can Hailstorm to break that sash. Same with the Shadow Rider stuffs, right? You can Hailstorm and break that sash, which is really, really nice. But what else is there? Like I said, Rinya's Sun, Zacian, Kyogre, Calyrex, Palkia, I covered. Those I think are the main three right now. What else is out there? I guess Evil Dawn is one of those. It's just positioning to Zapdos. Positioning to Zapdos versus Evil Dawn is probably the game plan there. And guys, I'm not one of those guys that's. I know a lot of the times it's flowchart, 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 and for me, it's. I don't love flowcharting. I will flowchart maybe one or two initial turns, kind of the thought process that they want to have going into the matchup, and I make my plays based on that rather than making my plays based on a flowchart. I don't know. I don't know if that's good or not. I find it. I don't know. I find flowcharting. If I lock into a flowchart, right? I'm stuck into a flowchart, and my opponent probably knows my flowchart, right? But if I start making adaptations on make my flowchart not really a flowchart, but more of adaptive to how they want to play the game, which is a lot of times what I end up doing, right? Because I know their flowcharts, right? I know Rinya's Sun wants to do this. I know Calyrex Palkia wants to do this. So I make my plays based on what they're going to do, more so rather than just trying to position my end game. Obviously, I'm trying to do both at the same time, and it's a matter of balancing when you want to get your end game going and when you want to just make reads on their end. And it's one of the things I have trouble with because a lot of times I end up playing too passive because of that, and it puts me on the back foot. But when it works, it works. That's all there is to say. When it works, it works. But I am super happy with top 16. Of course, shout outs, guys. Just honestly, the initial team creator, Joe, because like you still, even though I didn't build with Joe, I still have to shout out Joe, because you'd be lying if you said I saw Joe's team, right? I originally had Dragon Ball, I saw Joe's team, and then I ended up switching Dragon Ball, I believe, to Rillaboom or to Grimmsnarl, sorry. And it was just one of the things like, did I really build with Joe? No, but Joe did create the team. So shout out to Joe UX9 for one of the original variants of the team. Pengy and Pengy, Turtle, Manby, rest of the apprentice guys, for the testing, for talking me through things and stuff like that. Anybody that did help me prep in Top Cut, there's too many. Prep for Top Cut, too many to name. Obviously, can't name them all, otherwise I'm going to miss somebody. But you knew who you are. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Of course, shout out to the tournament organizers as well, guys. None of these tournaments happen without these tournament organizers, right? So, like I said, I got nothing. And I say this on stream a lot, especially when I stream my Top Cut matches. If there is an official stream, watch the official stream before my stream, right? We don't have this tournament. I don't have this stream right now if they don't put on a tournament. So huge thank you to the organizers of the tournament. Really do appreciate everything they do to get these tournaments set up and running. And with that, guys, it has been way longer than I wanted to talk, at a whopping 40 minutes, but if not longer than that by now. But I will stop talking now, and I will catch you guys in a future video.